So I'm not really sure what you're doing right now, but whatever it is, you need to stop and make this cake. We are going to take a really quick break from the new series, Classic Cakes Veganized, to make what I would call an American classic, the chocolatey Eclair cake. This is the stuff that childhood summertime dreams were made of. Who else would chase the ice cream man down the street in the summer to get your favorite ice cream bar? Well, mine was always the Good Humor chocolatey Eclair, and today I am going to be replicating it in cake form. So I've already got my cakes baked ahead of time. This is just going to be a really quick cake layer tutorial. And so I've already got my cakes baked ahead of time, and you can just really bake your favorite recipe of chocolate cake and white cake, and hopefully your favorite recipes happen to be mine. I will link to all of the recipes as usual below this video in the box. So I am going to be doing 2 layers of white cake for this one and 1 layer of chocolate cake. As you see, I am trimming the domes off of my cake layers here so that they're all going to be perfectly even and level. Now, the other things that you're going to need, the other recipes you're going to need to pull off this cake is very simply a 2-ingredient ganache that needs to set up to a more spreadable consistency, so definitely do that ahead of time. So I'll always do the ganache in the morning. In the meantime, make up your buttercream recipe like I'm doing here, and I have like 5 different buttercream recipes for you to choose from on my website. This one happens to be my American style recipe, which I do love the most. It's the easiest and it's just really good, and I haven't even been using shortening in my buttercream recipes anymore. So this is a straight up 100% vegan butter recipe. As you can tell, the stability is absolutely perfect. So really no need for shortening in any of my recipes anymore, unless of course you are making a wedding cake and you need it to sit out for like half the day, or you're traveling with it, or you have a really heavy decoration. That's pretty much the only thing that shortening is used for nowadays. I've also got my cookies that I've crushed up in the food processor, and you can use sandwich cookies, digestive biscuits, like whatever cookies you like the most. Just make sure it's a combination of chocolate and vanilla like I have here, because that is going to be the famous signature Eclair crunch coating that's going to go all around the outside of this cake. Now, on the other hand, if you didn't want to use cookies or buy extra things or even make extra cookie recipes to make this cake, you could just use the cake scraps from the trimmed off layers. The only thing with that is that you're not going to have a crunch coating like you will if you use the cookies. So now that we have everything prepared ahead of time, this is the ultimate building on recipes project, where you do have to get all of your recipes prepared ahead of time so that on the day of the build, it's just a really easy build. I'm going to be layering mine with buttercream and ganache as the filling, because I just really want it to have a certain look when I do slice the cake. Who else draws diagrams of their sliced cakes before they get to building? Here's mine. Don't make fun of me, but that's basically how I see what I'm going to do so I can get an idea of what my cake is going to look like once it's sliced. So I'm using a pastry bag for the filling for the buttercream on this because I do want it to be as even as possible. That's also going to help when you slice the cake to have perfect layers of every single portion. I'm sort of digging a little bit of a trench here. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. Building up a little rim and making it a little bit thinner down in the center because that's where I'm going to be putting the ganache. My ganache is not quite set. It's like semi-spreadable, but it's still kind of liquid. And if I didn't do that little trench, then that's just gonna squish out the sides of the cake, which is not what I'm trying to do today. So I just have that little lip of buttercream, which is gonna kind of help hold this ganache in, and I'm not gonna have a disastrous squishy mess coming out of the sides. So what was your favorite ice cream bar off of the ice cream truck in the summer? If it wasn't the chocolate eclair for me, it was the strawberry shortcake, which is pretty much exactly like the chocolate eclair, only it is strawberry and vanilla. And I have done a replica cake of that one too. So if you haven't seen that, you might want to check out my strawberry shortcake cake. That is a perfect replica in cake form of the strawberry shortcake of the same name. It always surprises me when people say that they would get like ice pops. Like, who would want an ice pop off of the ice cream truck? Like, that is so boring. And it's also funny, you can know what year somebody was born if they talk about something like a fat frog or even a SpongeBob ice cream bar. Like, you can totally date yourself when you say the specific ice cream that you like off the ice cream truck. Who remembers the Bomb Pop? Another boring one is the ice cream sandwich. Like, I don't know, to me, I wanted something that I couldn't get out of my own freezer, and that for me was the chocolate eclair. I tend to be really heavy-handed when I do fillings on my cakes, and that's pretty risky when you have a cake with so many layers and so many fillings and so much stuff going on, because you could end up with the leaning tower of chocolate eclair instead of a really nice, perfectly sliced cake. So I have to really hold it back sometimes when I fill my cakes, because I tend to go a little bit overboard. Not only, you know, I like to eat cake too, and I want them to be like perfectly ooey gooey inside with a little bit more filling to cake ratio. I've always been that kind of person. Here goes our last layer of white cake, and I'm definitely going to be putting this into the refrigerator to set before I do my crumb coat, which is going to be more ganache. Then I'm going to ice it with buttercream, and then we're going to pile on that signature crunchy eclair coating. This ganache is probably the same consistency as my buttercream, which is really ideal for using as a base icing. Of course, you could just pour the warm ganache over the entire cake and be done with it, but I'm going for layers and layers of chocolate and vanilla alternating. So I want to do just a really thin coating of ganache. That's why I'm spreading it on with my spatula. And then I'm going to ice right over it with the buttercream. Now back into the refrige this goes to set, and then the final icing of buttercream. So I know I complained a little bit about it being so cold here in northern Florida today, but honestly this is the perfect temperature for working with this combination of icings, because if it was really hot and humid today and I pulled this ganache crumb iced cake out of the refrigerator, chances are it could get a little bit of condensation, which would be an absolute nightmare to then try to buttercream ice the rest of it, because it would just be slipping and sliding all over the ganache and it would just be a literal mess. So actually the temperature in here today is like 68 degrees inside the house. It's closer to like 58 degrees outside today, but this is perfect conditions for working with a double icing like this. Now also you can see how stable my buttercream is, and again I mentioned I am not using shortening anymore for my buttercream recipes, mostly because it's really hard to find for home bakers, and I would only really use SweetTex, which is the same one that I used when I had my bakery, but that's only sold in like 50-pound cubes, and I'm not trying to buy 50 pounds of shortening anymore. So I've switched to all vegan butter, and it's actually perfect. I mean, it's enough stability that I need. Essentially, shortening in buttercream is really only for stability. It doesn't offer any flavor. It is completely flavorless. It's nothing but pure fat, and the only thing that it does lend is the stability. So if you do need your cake to sit out for several hours at like a wedding, then I probably would recommend using shortening. Super hot climates, if you're displaying your cake outside, then I would recommend shortening. If you have really heavy decor that you need to do, then shortening would be a really good idea. But for just your regular cakes like this one, no shortening is the way to go. Now, I don't really have to worry about what the outside of this cake looks like, because I am going to be covering the whole thing with that Eclair cake crunch, but I am just warming my spatula with a blowtorch. Obviously, if you don't have a blowtorch, you don't need that. You could just dip it in hot water and then wipe the excess off with a towel. But do you see the difference just by using a warm spatula on what was a very rough iced cake before I did that? So when it is cold in the area that you're working, the buttercream can tend to not look as super shiny as it should and smooth. So that's a little trick that you can implement for a very smooth sided cake. Again, it's not necessary because we are just about to load this thing up with that amazing Eclair crunch. So I did mention my new series right here on YouTube, Classic French Cakes Veganized. Well, I shouldn't say French cakes because they're not all French cakes. They're just classic cakes that I learned way back when I was in culinary school. So these are like the essential classic cakes that you have to learn, and I'm replicating all of them in vegan form here on my channel. It is completely free. All you have to do is subscribe here to my channel. If you have already seen the first 2 cakes in the series, comment below and let me know how you're liking this. And the next one on the list is either the classic Napoleon cake, or I'm going to be doing the Saint Honoré, which means we have to perfect vegan profiteroles. So stay tuned for that one. Again, it's all free. You just have to be a subscriber here to my channel, but making these videos and testing these recipes certainly aren't free. So a great big shout out to my patrons on Patreon and my pals in PayPal for making all of this possible. If you think you can help support the channel for as little as a cup of coffee a month, click the links below to find out how. All right. Now we are ready to do the coating, and we can go ahead and slice this amazing cake. So there you have it, the chocolate eclair cake. It is absolutely perfect. The right amount of chocolate. I almost went 2 layers of chocolate and 1 layer of white cake, but I'm really glad that I switched it. The thin layer of ganache through each layer is just like perfect, with the combination of buttercream and of course the cookie crunch on the outside makes this one more American classic to add to your list. So I really hope you're going to make it. As always, grab the recipes at Gretchen'sVeganBakery.com. Another great big thank you to my patrons on Patreon and my pals in PayPal. Without you guys, this would not be happening. So thank you is never enough. And if you are enjoying this channel and you are getting value out of my recipes, please consider subscribing to my Patreon account. All the links are below. For as little as a cup of coffee a month, you too can keep this thing going. And let me tell you, this thing is worth keeping going. All right, everyone, thanks for watching. And until next time, happy vegan baking. Bye for now.